I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Hey, we were kind of in sync there.
Yeah, you kind of threw us off.
Like really aligned.
Right.
Okay.
Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Aldency.
Here.
Melinda
Or
Cook.
there.
Yeah.
Kevin McElwain.
Here.
Kathy Wilkin.
Here.
Patrick Sellers.
Here,
We have a quorum.
we have a quorum. The first order of business is the approval of minutes for the September 5th, 2023 meeting. I need a motion and a second, please.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Aldency, second by Cook. Have a look at the minutes if you haven't done so already.
The minutes were short and sweet.
Any questions on minutes?
I don't have
No?
any.
All righty. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. The next order of business is approval of bills payable. I need a motion and a second, please.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Cook, second by McElwain. Look at bills payable.
Northwest Bank.
Northwest Bank.
$500 emergency.
Where we at here?
On the single page.
Got it.
Page one.
That was a mortgage payment for someone, emergency assistance. They live in Freeport, but their mortgage is through Northwest Bank of Rockford.
How do you qualify for that? Is that's a one-time
Yes.
situation?
Yes. Has to be a situation beyond your control, and you have to be able to maintain after we provide the assistance. You have to have some sort of income, and you've had some sort of emergency that's thrown you behind that you can verify. And then we provide $500 of assistance for you, but you have to be able to prove that you can maintain after we provide the assistance.
How so? Like just with pay stubs?
Yes,
or-
pay stubs. You have to verify that you can maintain. So we ask for pay stubs, things of that nature. We ask for any sort of other type of income that you have that you can prove that you can maintain after we provide the assistance.
So it's a one-time thing.
Yeah. Right.
Yes.
So do they?
Per
do they?
annual, per fiscal year.
That's what I was just going to ask.
Per
Okay.
year. Yes, one time
Okay.
per year. Yes.
That was the only question I had. Also, was the Northwest Bank one.
Yeah.
So I'm good.
I knew that one was coming. Any more questions or claims on demands, trustee?
No.
No? Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Aldency.
Aye.
Cook.
Yes.
McElwain.
Aye.
Wilkins.
Aye.
Sellers.
Aye.
Motion passed.
Motion passes. The next order of business is presentation of the audit from the auditing firm Benning Group. So I need a motion and a second, please.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Aldency, second by Cook. I will now turn the floor over to
Ta-da.
Benning Group.
Who's going to talk?
Kyle Demas?
Kyle, that's right. You talked to us before, didn't you?
Yes, I've been here for, oh gosh.
Is it DEMUS or IS?
Correct.
US.
US.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, Clayton was just asking, do you know how long it's been, Patrick? I said 2014, 2015 was,
Yeah.
I guess, when we started right in that time frame.
Yes, yes.
So almost going on 10 years now.
Mm-hmm.
So yes,
Yep.
my name is Kyle Demas. I'm a partner with Benning Group here in Freeport. With me today is Clayton Lee. He's one of our in-charge auditors. So kind of as that sounds, he was in charge of your audit this year. Worked with me directly the last couple of years, and this year he kind of ran the show as far as the nuts and bolts of the audit went. I was still a supervisor over top of that, reviewed the audit, worked with him through any questions or anything, and helped prepare the report for you. So he's here today just to listen along or possibly chime in and answer any questions if there are any that he can jump in on. But I will take you through kind of the high points of our report. If you get looking at it later and you have any questions, Patrick and Liz could help or certainly direct you to me to help with those as well. So of the two packets of paper there that you have, the one thicker bound plastic grain copy, that's our formal audit report. So I'm just going to touch on a couple pages in there is all. You get past the table of contents, the first letter, technically page 1 there on our letterhead, it says independent auditors report at the top. Essentially that's what you pay us for, to provide our opinion, give our opinion on the financial statements. As has been the case since we've been doing this, our opinion is clean as far as the financial statements go. You'll see in the second paragraph there, it says, in our opinion, the financial statements referred to above present fairly in all material respects the respective modified cash basis financial position. So, in some fancy words, that means cash basis financial statements are all clean from our perspective. So if you get past that first letter, page 4 and page 5 take all of your funds and they consolidate them into what the standards refer as governmental activities. So this is a required reporting, not something that you're accustomed to seeing, but that takes all the funds you have and combines them into one presentation. Following that will be a little bit closer to what you're used to seeing on a fund basis. So page 6 and page 7. Page 6 is the balance sheet that shows the cash reserves at the top, and then the bottom section shows any liabilities that are owed by those funds, and then the ending reserves in each fund there. I think what might be the most beneficial for you is on page 7. So that's your income statement, basically by fund. You'll see 4 funds listed there: general fund, general assistance, insurance, and FICA. There's calculation that we go through to determine which funds are considered to be major that have to be shown right on the face of the financial statements. So then in this case, your audit fund and your IMRF fund are grouped into that second column from the right where it says other governmental funds. Those ones, small enough activity during the year that those are grouped together and reported consolidated. There's a schedule at the back of the report that breaks them out if you want to see the detail there. But really the number that probably most interest for you here is third line from the bottom.
What went into the other again?
That's IMRF and audit are included in that column there.
All right, thanks.
Yep. So then third line from the bottom, that net change in fund balance, that's your net surplus or deficit for the year. If you look across there, everything's a positive number, so all funds operated to a positive for the year. The capital fund operated at a slight negative, but that's contained within the general fund. There's detail of that at the back as well, but everything there was kind of as expected to be paid out through the capital fund. So as you'll see all the way, so third line from the bottom all the way at the right, net surplus for the year was just over $170,000. The line at the very bottom, fund balance end of year, that shows what your ending reserves are in each one of those funds. And this is all as of April 30th of 23, your fiscal year end. Beyond that is our footnotes that start on page 9, a whole bunch of narrative descriptions to a handful of things contained in the numbers at the front. The one thing I'll call attention to, 2 things I guess in there, on page 16, there's a footnote about your cash and investments. A handful of years ago now, maybe 4 years ago or so, Patrick, cash deposits in excess of FDIC limits have to be secured by the bank. If they're not, they run the risk that if the bank collapses, that those deposits are lost. So there was a year, several years ago, where the value of what the bank had pledged to the township was not sufficient to cover that. So we kind of gave a recommendation for a monthly check that I believe is still happening, correct, Patrick?
Yes.
Everything, all deposits as of fiscal year end in excess of FDIC limits were all covered by the value of collateral pledged by the bank. So it was a one-time issue, but even when we have audits that don't have that issue, I'd like to call attention to that to make sure that everything is all good there. Bottom of page 17, folding over onto page 18, is a footnote on restricted net position. So the number that I referred to earlier, the bottom of page 7, where it showed ending reserves in all of your funds, several of those funds have restrictions placed on them based on the income source that generates that. So all of your special revenue funds that you levy for, general assistance, insurance, IMRF, so on and so forth, the reserves in those funds are all restricted for those purposes, basically is what that's saying. The only unrestricted fund is your general fund that can basically be spent as you direct. Any questions on anything so far? There's a handful of more footnotes in there. It goes into some detail on IMRF pensions. And then towards the back, there are budget to actual schedules, revenue and expense wise for all of the major funds that we talked about earlier. And then there's some combining schedules for the IMRF and the audit fund. And then there's a combining schedule for the general and the capital fund at the very back of that bound report. So that was all I was going to cover there. Then I was going to flip over to the smaller stapled copy. If no one has any questions there, that smaller stapled letter, this is our management letter. This is our required communication as auditors to you as the board. Talks about what our responsibilities are under an audit. Page 2 has a section for us to show you any, or relay to you any issues with dealing with management. Never been an issue here. Working with Patrick, working with Liz on the detailed side has always been great. Always responsive to our questions, always get us everything that we need. Top of page 3, we do have to call attention to any uncorrected misstatements or material misstatements that we correct as part of the audit. So those 3 bullet points there at the top are items that we fixed with things that when we went through the audit. First one, accounts payable. It's just the nature of when Liz records invoices that come in, and since you're cash basis, you don't technically report those payables. You report the expenses when they're actually paid. So a lot of those were paid out in May. They just get reflected on Liz's books at the end of the year, and we have to back them off. That's pretty much a recurring entry that we do each year. The second one, there's an allocation of corporate personal replacement taxes that you get that has to go to satisfy your IMRF fund. Liz has had trouble in the past getting that entry, that journal entry in QuickBooks, which can be difficult with just the confines of QuickBooks. So that was an adjustment that we posted. We've given her what we think is a solution to allocate those revenues to those funds without having to do it by a journal entry. So I'm hopeful that that'll be gone next year. And then the last one is kind of a carryover of the prior issue that we had with QuickBooks and the checking account, and how QuickBooks really didn't have the ability to balance all of that out within itself. So that was kind of a carryover entry to get that cleaned up, and going forward, hopefully we're in a better spot with that. So the last couple items I'll call attention to are on page 5. So anytime that there's a deficiency in internal control, we're required to call attention to that in our letter here. The first one is a recurring deficiency. You and every other small municipality that gets audited has this lack of segregation of duties. Liz does too much for the accounting standards likings. It's standard across the board with what we see for municipalities of your size. So board's involvement, reviewing budget to actual, approving invoices, that type of involvement helps mitigate any fraud risk that could come with lack of segregation of duties. It's not feasible to hire enough people in your capacity to the accounting standards likings, so it's kind of, it is what it is kind of thing. We put it in there because we have to, but we recognize the controls and the checks and balances that are in place to prevent fraud, prevent error, things of that nature. The second one, material journal entries, that was kind of a piggyback off of the items we just talked about a few minutes ago. If we have items that we have to call attention to in our letter here, it kind of creates this significant deficiency for material journal entries. Again, if we can get those items cleaned up, that item can come out of our letter here in the future. I don't believe there are any underlying issues with any of those journal entries. That's like some kind of a systemic issue. Those issues are very isolated, and really for the most part we've got solutions, I think, for the majority of them. The last thing that I'll mention is actually something that's been removed from this letter. So last year we had a pretty significant comment in here about QuickBooks, the lack of the ability to reconcile each fund individually, and kind of issues that caused within the checking account reconciliation. So we appreciate the investment that you've made in ClerkBooks, and I think Liz greatly, I don't want to speak for her, but just in conversation, greatly does as well. Like we've talked about for several years, you're confined to what QuickBooks can handle, and governmental fund accounting, it just can't. So QuickBooks is a great solution. It drastically reduced the amount of time that we had on the front end of the audit. Still had some trying to figure out the system, get the reports we needed and all that this year, but going forward, it's going to save a tremendous amount of time as far as the audit is concerned. So, question, fees should be lower than what they
Yeah,
have
that's
been.
right.
So yes, ideally we're able to keep our fees lower because of that investment that you made and because of the time savings that it generates from us. Yes, absolutely.
I have a question.
Yes.
The new clerk books, will that take care of this accumulative adjustments that you were talking about on page 3?
So it'll take care of some of it. Hopefully it'll take care of that third item, whereas right now, previously you didn't have the ability to see how much of your checking account was split out across all the funds. Every one of your funds has a deposit balance included in that single checking account. QuickBooks didn't give you the ability to see how much was in each fund. Now, with ClerkBooks, you have the ability to see that. So there are some lingering receivable payables on the books where the general fund, the insurance fund, they owe the general assistance fund basically for cash that's been used from the checking account that was really general assistance fund checking account money. So now that ClerkBooks gives you the ability to truly reconcile that cash by each fund, now we can kind of rebalance that. Take some money out of the general fund savings and put it in the checking account to get rid of those odd balances that show there. Previously, we knew those existed, but we really couldn't fix them because we couldn't reconcile each one of those funds separately. So it's going to take a little bit of cleanup going forward yet. It's not going to be perfect just yet, but now that ClerkBooks is installed, it gives the ability to track that and clear those odd receivables and payables.
Okay.
So that was a huge step in the right direction to really being able to pinpoint where that cash balance was. You could always reconcile cash. The checking account has always been reconciled, but being able to divvy it up between all the funds where it should be was really never able to be done correctly.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
All right.
Any questions on any of that? I think I hit the main one about the audit fees.
We are all like, ooh, okay, yeah.
Any more questions for the auditors, trustees? If you guys can think of some later on,
Look at this for a while, right?
yep, you can email them to me and I can send them over to the
At
auditors.
any
So
time.
we can
Yep,
do
feel
that
free to shoot
too.
me an email, or if we
All
need
right.
to discuss something over the phone, just let me know. We can schedule something to talk.
All right.
Sounds
Thank you
good.
very much.
Yep.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate it. Now, we don't have to do no sort of vote on this, do we? I think we're good to go.
It's
Okay.
just a presentation.
Okay.
The AFR has been submitted to the comptroller, so as far as formal filing with the government, that's all been taken care
Okay.
of. The one printed copy that I gave you just needs to go to the clerk's office,
Got it.
and you should be all set.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Thank you very much. All right. Okay. Moving on, the next order of business is the supervisor's report. That would be me. So, I have some handouts for you guys. I'm going to hand out the expenditure of the budget report right here. Get this all around. There you go, Barbara. Uh-huh.
And Michael.
And Michael. Michael. Here we go. You know, oh. Okay. And I'm also handing out the settlement sheet. This is our third disbursement. I'm going to hand this out. There you go. Here, and Mike. And 1, 2, 3. There we go.
Is there a disbursement every quarter?
Yes. Yes.
I kind of figured that.
I think total,
Seven?
yep. Total
Okay.
7. Total 7. Let's see. I'll let you guys take a look at that. Have any questions you can ask me before I move on to the next subject matter. Need those guys to sign that.
Oh.
But as you can see, we are pretty much on target with our budget. We are on target.
And Kathy, just so you know, we got $200,252.38 on the third tax
Yeah,
thing.
she'll get
All
a
right,
copy of it in
thank
her
you.
book. She'll get a copy of it in her book.
I know she will.
Okay. Are there any questions, trustees,
was
on the
nice of you,
information?
Barb.
Yes, thank you, Barb. Are there any questions, trustees, on the information that I handed out? Any questions? No? Okay. The next order of business is the assessor's report. Assessor. Rachel.
I just want to let you know that I've been in conversation with the county. They asked me to hold off on submitting the new assessments for 2023, that's the year we're in, until the end of the month. So at the end of September, I'll be turning over our values. And then if all goes well, they're hoping to publish at the end of October.
So they asked you to hold off the assessments? Is that what
No,
you
so
said?
they had some work for county to get done, and they just wanted to do it all at once, so they just asked me to wait to submit the values until then.
Okay. I just want to get the wording right.
So basically, Barb, we'll be turning our values over to the county at the end of September,
Okay.
okay? That's it?
That was okay. All righty. Well, the next order of business is trustee report. Trustees. Anything? Nothing? No. Okay. Any public comments? No? Okay. Any other business coming before the town? Any other business? Any other business? No? Seeing that there is none, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn until Monday, October 2nd, 2023 at 4:30 p.m.
So moved.
I'll second it.
Motion by
McElwain.
McElwain, second by Wilkin. All in favor?
I
Aye. Any opposed?
Aye.
Okay.
All right, meeting adjourned.